My hope has been that film will secure the future and serve the still wider needs of the people of Canada. John Gerson.
Ottawa, 1939. Prime Minister Mackenzie King wants to develop a film policy for Canada. Hollywood owns virtually every Canadian theatre. King invites Scottish documentary filmmaker John Gerson to visit Canada.
And he had been very instrumental in England in making films like Night Mails about the Postal Service and Song of Ceylon all about the beautiful Asian colonies of ours and the tea growing plantation, things like that.
The government wants to create films for Canadians.
But nothing was coordinated. And I think, I don't know whether Gerson and Mackenzie King saw that the war was coming. Well, certainly King would have seen the war was coming. And they brought John Gerson out to advise on a film policy for Canada. And he recommended a National Film Board.
Those who had studied the development of propaganda were constantly warning that a highly organized information service, national and international, was as necessary as any other line of defense. John Gerson.
To set up the NFB, Gerson hired talented British filmmakers.
If the Canadians said all they really wanted to do was to make movies, they weren't hired. Stuart Legg.
I don't know how well he knew Canada. He knew America. He knew North America, and he just saw us as little colonial characters that weren't really capable of cleaning our own ears and brushing our own teeth, and he had to show us how to do it. So it was a very patriarchal vision of Canada then. But he didn't have a cultural vision for Canada, as far as I know. But he did bring an enormous integrity to all his work and a strong sense of moral purpose within the production of film.
If to me the life I love, let the way go by me. Give the jolly heaven above, and the byre nigh me. Dead in the bush with stars to see, bread I live in the river. There's the life for an end like me.
The National Film Board will be the eyes of Canada. It will, through a national use of cinema, see Canada and see it whole, its people and its purposes. John Gerson.
Gerson believed that film would bring Canadians together. The NFB needed to make Canada into a nation. Gerson and the NFB were careful to paint a perfect Canada.
Good food and cleanliness give them a chance to grow strong, active, and self-reliant. These are the young natives of the North, new generation of a changing race.
How would you feel about getting on the road to a job?
What sort of job?
Motors?
I guess so.
How about starting as a motor mechanic?
That's what they all say. But how?
You know Mr. McDonald down the street? He wants an apprentice.
He does?
Why not go and see him tomorrow morning, and then come and tell us what you think?
Yeah, okay. And thanks.
And you might tell a few of your friends to come up and have a word with us.
Sure, I will.
Even our own commanders were hardly distinguishable from privates in their battle dress. It seemed like an answer to the need for a new efficiency. But our very presence there was a pledge that Canada will keep faith.
As the war went on, the NFB expanded film production. Month by month,
The films were finished in time for release to the theaters. But just. Often it meant editors and negative cutters working around the clock. But a theatrical release date was a sacred commitment. Marjorie McKay.
The NFB wants to reach farmers, rural towns, and ethnic groups that are not served by theaters. Film projectionists are hired to travel a circuit of rural Canada. They screen films in towns beyond the reach of movie theaters.
During one showing of a nature film, an owl flew in and defecated on the screen. The audience was left astounded by this new height in film realism. Bill Ritchie.
Not all reactions are positive.
I recall in 1942 where many people in the first audiences were, to say the least, apathetic, if not downright negative.
But they are sturdy and cheerful, these squat aborigines, with deep reserves of vigor and intelligence to keep them alive in the Arctic and to tide them over the changes of the future. The Eskimo tribes border the coast and the Arctic islands. Their life is bound up with the sea.
They're all propaganda films, nothing but government propaganda films.
Social issues like the internment of Japanese Canadians went unmentioned. According to Grierson and the National Film Board, Canada was trouble-free.
They were sought as low-paid laborers for the railways and mines. Today, through education and training, they are shouldering more responsible duties and occupations, and their children are growing up in Occidental ways.
Because his view would be you have to make them all good Canadians. So it doesn't matter where they came from.
The actual rural circuit thing was almost completely an artificial concept. I had the greatest difficulty here in persuading people.
The projectionists found it difficult to get an adult audience to return month after month.
I'm the guy who overhears what you say and passes it on to the enemy. I seem to recognize some of you.
Any news from Jim?
I'm not supposed to say this, but he must be sailing by now.
That's quick. Seems no time since we saw him.
Very helpful, ladies. Just look at the result.
The children also grow tired of these films. Even the cartoons have an adult audience in mind.
More guns, more shells. Never was the need more urgent. Invest in war-saving certificates today.
Oh, what?
Yes, you. What would you be worth if the United Nations lost this war? Nothing. We must win. Enlist in our army of regular war savers.
He didn't think Canadians should make fiction films. And he didn't want them to make fiction films. They should make documentary films, and if they want to be entertained, they could let Hollywood do it for them. And I certainly disagree with that too. If I wanted to point at something that I think is dastardly in Grierson, it's that impulse. So he should have known a bit better than that. But he didn't, so he's not perfect.
The NFB decided to expand the rural circuits program to factories and union halls. Projectionists screened films during shift breaks and lunches. The workers had to attend screenings.
These departmental committees are also joint committees, with the shop steward, nominees of the management such as the foreman, and representatives elected by the workers. They meet regularly and consider production problems in their own department.
Even there, you just get this voice of management and labor beginning to work together. Ha, ha, ha. But they were in the same room together, you know. But so that telling these little bureaucratic lies that keep things going. So there was this patriarchal position throughout all these films, and if you like, it's patronizing, but that's a word I would not use myself, because it was part of the historical thinking of the time too. It's like the church, you know, the priests and clergymen tell you what you have to do to get into the kingdom of heaven. Well, without him, and without the follow-up, it's hard to imagine what we'd have here. We could very well have just, well, we're still a branch plant of the Hollywood industry, basically, economically. But what little dignity we achieved, I'm sure Grierson is partly responsible for, even though he didn't approve of fiction films. But he gave us pride in being who we were, and having Lorne Greene tell us what we used to think.
So there you have it. There are two sides to propaganda and two sides to the film at war. In that way, I have thought to rescue from these barren days of trouble something we can hand on to the future. John Grierson.
Let them blow for soon or late, let what will be army give the face of earth around and the road before me. Wealth I ask not, hope nor love, nor a friend to know.